Good morning. Bharmal sir, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
May I start, sir?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, everybody, dear participants of conference, respected trustees of Shri Pancham Khebraj Mahavidyalaya, Sawantwadi, Sindhudurga, and all the resource person belongs to the India and abroad. Today, 27 July 2021, we have get together for the one-day international multidisciplinary conference on research methodology in library science, economics, social science, pure science, management, home science in higher education system in India and abroad. I would like to announce that here, Shri Pancham Khebraj Mahavidyalaya, Sawantwadi, PG Economics Department and IQSC organized one-day international multidisciplinary conference have got the huge success due to more than 171 plus participation have been admitted in this conference. Near about 4 abroad participants and 167 Indian universities, professor, scientist, PhD research scholar, industrialists, etc. have been admitted in this international conference. This conference will be useful for the purpose of the career advancement scheme and academic performance indicator, as well as for useful fulfillment of the requirement of the PhD and DLIT in Indian University and abroad university. International and to national research papers should be published as per the requirement of the PhD. Respected Principal Dr. Bhalmal sir and SPK College trustees have given the trust on our NGO, Shri Waghmare Brothers, NGO Media and Publicity Partner in India and abroad, private event management company, having full of trust of the participants and love of NGO, SPK College, Sawantwadi. Actual, the conference will start with our national anthem, Jana Gana Man. I would like to request to all participation, please stand up for the national anthem, Jana Gana Man. Thank you. Please sit down. Thank you. Thank you. We are Indian. When we listen our national anthem, that our mind again inspire and more intellectual capacity increase automatically. I would like to hand over this session for the further progress, further session. Respected Dr. Principal Bharmal sir, as the inauguration session of the one-day international conference. Bharmal sir, please continue.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Respected Dr. Janice Fernandez, librarian and scientist, Rahampton Library, London, United Kingdom. Professor Ugen Thinley, Senior Lecturer, Royal University, Bhutan. Dr. Mrs. Kinnari Thakkar, Professor and Head of the Department of Commerce, University of Mumbai. Dr. Vasant Zugale, Professor of Economics, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. Professor and Principal, Dr. Atul Salunkhe, Roha College. Dr. Birada, Harvard, India. I have the honor of welcoming the gathering of distinguished academicians and researchers from India and abroad for today's one-day virtual international multidisciplinary conference on research methodology in economics, library science, social science, commerce, pure science, management, and home science in higher education system in India and abroad. This conference is organized by our postgraduate Department of Economics and Internal Quality Assurance Cell of our college. Our team economics and members of IQAC had a very long brainstorming session and they finalized the theme that is a very challenging issue before our nation that calls for immediate attention of the policymakers as well as policy executives. We are responsible academicians and researchers in the field of to raise this issue, discuss the topic thoroughly from macro and micro perspective and design an effective strategy that will help the policymakers in framing proactive action plans. We at Shri Pancham Khemaraj Mahavidyalaya Savantwadi take this opportunity to provide you with a vibrant online to discuss, debate, and design the strategic plan on research in higher education. Whole day session will enable you to assimilate, analyze, and accumulate rich experiences from the various resource persons from India and abroad, and you share the same with your peers and learners. Our college in 1961 by Lieutenant Colonel His Highness Raja Sahib Shivram Raje Bhosle, and it is permanently affiliated to University of Mumbai with the aim of imparting quality education to students from hilly and rural areas and chiseling out dynamic personalities to shoulder the responsibility of modern India. The sapling that initially started with 100 students has grown in a premier multi-faculty institution imparting high-quality education in various branches of arts, commerce, and science at undergraduate and postgraduate level, and also PhD in the selected subjects. The college has been honored as best college in a rural category in the year 2006 and is a recipient of A grade by NAC Bengaluru in the third accreditation in 2019. Our college is also ISO certified in since 2015. In spite of many hurdles, unfavorable topography could easily surpass milestones of success only because of our visionary board of trustees, who are not only visionaries, but it's the leadership, administrative skills, human skills, ability to analyze the problems and give rational and practical solutions has made this college an institution of repute. Our former chairman, Srimanta Rajamata Satvashala Devi Bhosle, she was princess from the royal family of Gaikwads of Baroda. She was actively involved in social, educational, cultural activities. She was renowned craftswoman and was instrumental in preserving the card game Ganzifa and the lacquerware art. She was prudent leader, able administrator who led the systems on whose foundation, our institution is able to adapt the changes in education policies and pave its way to success. His Highness Raja Sahib Khem Samanta Bhosle, President, Sindhudurga Jilla Shikshan Prasarak Mandal Savantwadi, a royal person, not only by birth, but he is equally royal in thoughts and action. He firmly believes in progress and prosperity through excellence. He, as an engineer and law graduate, he advocates the philosophy that action speaks louder than words. Her Highness Rani Sahib Shubda Devi Bhosle, chairman of our Mandal, is interior decorator by profession and uses this skill to give modern look to our infrastructure, taking utmost care to retain traditional values. She is ardent in her work and strives hard to ensure that the activities of our institution are accelerated to achieve our goals before the target date. Her leadership style of working through people is unique and one of its kind. She is a great philanthropist and express her desire that she wants each and every student in this temple of learning should become successful in their walk of life. All these values have percolated down to the next generation. Our managing trustee, Yuvraj Lakhamraj Bhosle, and his better half, Shraddharaj Bhosle, this future generation have taken up the responsibility in the board of trustees of our Mandal. Has very good international exposure. Both have very good knowledge about the latest developments in the education sector in various developed nations. They have plans to implement these strategies in our institution that will bring our college on international map. At present, we've taken the keen interest in the administrative functions of our college. With these few words, I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I would like to hand over this session to respected trustee of Shri Panchab Khemraj Mahavidyalaya. Madam, please continue.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, madam.
Distinguished guests, participants, Dr. Janice Fernandez, librarian and scientist, Roehampton Library, London, UK. Professor Eugene Thinley, senior lecturer, Writer University, Royal University, Bhutan. Dr. Kinare V. Tucker, professor and HOD of Commerce University of Mumbai. Dr. Vasant Jugari, former professor of economics, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. Professor Atul Hansraj Sarunke, principal, KES. Dr. C.D. Deshmukh, commerce, and Sau KG Tamani, Arts College at Pingalsai, Taluka Roha. Dr. R.R. Biradar, Professor, Department of Economics, KU Dharwad, India. It's my pleasure to welcome the August gathering to this one-day online international conference organized by the PG Department of Economics and IQAC of our college. COVID-19 pandemic has severely affected the education sector and has raised many challenges before the teaching and learning communities. I therefore appreciate our team economics for selecting an apt topic for today's international conference. That is research, methodology in economics, library science, social science, commerce, pure science, management, and home science in higher education system in India and abroad. Our government is taking great pains and efforts to ensure that we achieve the target of 100% literacy in the coming years. This aim in the present time of fierce competition will not only surface. We'll have to focus on GER, that is the graduate enrollment ratio in higher education. In order to steer our country to the #1 position, it is very necessary to strengthen our manpower in terms of skill, attitude, and performance. This, I firmly believe, can be achieved only through higher education, research, and innovation. I'm very pleased to know that the participation of academicians, researchers, and learners from various branches of learning are in large numbers, as well as we have received many quality research papers on various topics related to today's theme of conference. I'm confident that the invited resource persons will enrich the participants by sharing their rich experience in their respective fields. The participants will have thorough deliberation on various avenues of research in higher education, making this marathon conference a grand success. On behalf of our SZSP Mandal's management, I assure you that we will always stand beside our team in their efforts to contribute to higher education that will raise higher benchmarks, resulting in higher quality of the students' community. These students will become the backbone of our motherland and will ultimately shoulder the responsibility of steering India to the #1 position. I wish you all the very best for today's event and in all your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. I would like to request respected trustee madam to inaugurate our electronic journal. I am sharing the electronic journal here, which is the article have been published online www.researchjourney.com. It is international conference, international journal, peer reviewed. I am sharing that. Is this visible? This is our journal named as International Research Follows Association Research Journey, International E-Research Journal, Peer Review, Peer Referred and Index Journal, Special Issue 269A, July 2021, Multidisciplinary Issue, International Standard Number 23487143. I would like to announce here all the 6 volumes would be published within this 10 August 2021 because of so many participations have taken the admission in one-day international conference. So it will be published remaining 5 volumes. The first volume have been published for one-day international conference. Thank you. I would like to give handover session to Economic Department HOD for best wishes and greetings. Thank you. Sir, please.
Thank you.
HOD of Economics, sir, please.
Respected Board of Trustees, Member of Government Council, resource person from India and abroad, and all the participants. I take this opportunity to welcome you all for the one-day online international multidisciplinary conference organized by our PG Department of Economics and IQAC of our college. I am sure you all will actively participate in this conference, and at the end of the day will be enriched with the various angles of research in your subject of learning and teaching. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So nice of your words, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
I would like to hand over this session to introduction part of first resource person. I would like to hand over Professor H.R. Rao sir for read the biodata of first resource person. Thank you. Rao sir, please continue.
Good morning to all esteemed participants and contributors who are present for today's international conference on a very crucial topic that is very close to our heart. I am very happy and feel privileged to introduce before you our distinguished guest and very senior speaker who brings with him his long experience of 39 years, who is the recipient of prestigious UGC's Om Trust Swami Pranavananda Saraswati National Award, awardee none other than Dr. Vasant Duggal. Our resource person, Dr. Vasant Duggal, was former professor of economics and director of Yashwantrao Chauhan School of Rural Development, director, IQAC Shivaji University, Kolhapur, dean, social science faculty during the period 2000 to 2006, former member of governing council, NABARD's Bankers Institute for Rural Development, BIRD, Lucknow, during 2005-2007 and also during 2007-2009. He is governing council member of NABARD NAPCONS Limited during 2004-2006. He is NAC Peer Team member and member of team of consultants for RUSA in Maharashtra. After such a remarkable career, Dr. Jugle retired in May 2015 to begin his second innings. He is the chief editor of 2 international journals. He has completed 14 research products that cover topics ranging from agriculture, banking, sugar industry, etc. He has published 15 reference journals referred to by academicians and research scholars. He has edited more than 18 volumes of research papers. To his credit are 138 research papers published and presented more than 169 papers in various national, international conferences. He has traveled far and wide in countries like Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Ghana, etc. To his credit are fortunate 25 PhD and 40 MPhil scholars who has received his guidance in their journey of achieving academic excellence. He is life member of various international institutions, founder president for Center for Social Studies, Sangli, expert nominated director of the Sangli Urban Cooperative Bank, Sangli. His list of achievements, awards, credentials will go on and on, but I have given just a glimpse. I am sure you will enjoy this session and get enriched by the session of Dr. Vasant Jugle. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Respected Dr. Vasant Jugle sir. Jugle sir.
Yeah, speaking.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Sir, your PPT is at a visible place. Please continue, sir. Please. Your first lecture. Thank you, sir. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Respected trustee of the college.
Sir, please increase your volume.
Respected trustee of the college, principal, organizing committee members, academic staff of the college, my co-speakers, paper writers, ladies and gentlemen.
At the outset, I sincerely thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to speak on the research methodology and exploration of methods and models. Friends, it is a big gathering of a diversified academic, gathering with various disciplines gathered from all around the country and the abroad. And this is itself indicates the significance of the topic that the college has chosen. In this respect, I heartily welcome the organizers' efforts to initiate such type of webinars for the arena of the academicians, particularly the young researchers who are deserving to work on the various research problems and explore the various research products in the various disciplines. In this respect, I would say that nowadays research is becoming very scientific and methodological. In good old days, methods and facts where a type of kind of a survey type fact finding surveys were being conducted, but nowadays methods and facts are integrating with some research ethical component. In this respect, you will see the tools of analysis and the interpretation has become a very scientific and uh, very readable research work is coming up, and this is the welcome feature of the young generation who are interested in various problems. And with this research, I would yes, say that the country and the world will definitely benefit the research. Now, to begin with my three important components of research. In any research, three components are very important. One is the formulation of the research problem. Secondly, adoption of proper research methodology. And the third is research writing, citation, references, following up the research ethics, and combating the plagiarism. Since last 3-4 decades, you will see that the various organizations, academic organizations like ICSSR, UGC, and Association of Universities, and so many academic organizations, universities also, they are organizing the appropriate research methodology course component for 3 weeks, one month, 1 week, so like that. But unfortunately, the first and the last because the formulation of the research problem is the beginning of the research, and this should be properly defined. Its destination is to be properly earmarked. And then coming to the last one, since last 1 decade, after the UGC's Tyagarajan committee recommendations, you will see that the humanities and the social sciences, they are following a huge amount of plagiarism, and as a result, the higher education research is becoming one of the very big question mark. In that respect, we should be able to teach and guide our students, young students, how to follow the citation methods. There are so many citation methods are being used. Research ethics is to be followed, and how to reduce the plagiarism. Plagiarism we can't reduce 100%, but it can be minimized through various efforts and monitoring system that the university can develop through the institutional inevitable part of the research academic. Now I will cover the formulation of the research problem. Next slide. Now you will see, next slide, please. Choosing a research area and look for the issues, not the topic. Because once the problem is properly defined, your scope and subject matter of the research will be defined. When you are defining your destination, ultimately the ways and the tools of going towards that destination are being properly utilized. So in that perspective, I would suggest the young researchers not to choose the topic, choose the problem. Even if suppose you choose the topic, find out the problem in the topic so that you will be confined to a particular problem and you will be properly, marching towards that particular destination. A poorly defined research problem leads so many ambiguities and it will deviate from the subjectivities. Now, how to choose the research problem? A researcher who is interested to work on a particular problem, he should be highly motivated to embark upon the research studies. This is the first essential. Motivation is very important. The real interest in the problem. A researcher should show the real interest in that particular problem. Then real excitement about what you wish to study, what I am going to study. So excitement, that would be a kind of, unrest in your mind. So that what would be the next part of my research areas? Will your topic have some practical value? So that is a very important, because the world is struggling for remedies. So many problems are coming up, particularly in humanities and social sciences. So many, every day we are finding so many problems. But the research which is being taken up, particularly the social sciences and the humanities, they should have some practical value to the society, the country, so that you will find out a very interesting area in that particular problem. Find out the problem is again one of the very interesting area. So how to find out the problem? You should read the good papers, good attend the academic conferences, seminars, webinars, find out some of the problems therein, and then that will be the source of inspiration for going towards particular research area. Next. Now, in this respect, when you select a particular problem, ultimately, so there are some methodologies that you can proceed. Next slide, please. Define the research problem so that may create various deliverables are to be determined properly. For example, what you will do, will it withstand scientific scrutiny, how you will do it, and what you may achieve from that particular perspective. There are two reasons why think through the process. So thinking through the process is very important, and communicate your thoughts to strengthen your will to do research. Whatever in your mind, you should speak with your friends, discuss with your friends, then come up with some of the very concrete problems. Then it can be discussed with some eminence in the area of your research problem. He will definitely guide you how to proceed towards the research activity. So in that perspective, once you define the proper problem, then create a flow chart, or what we call it as the flow tree. Next slide, please. The slide, next slide. Next slide, please. The flow chart is to be developed. So what is the problem? What are its ingredients? What are its sub themes? How you are going to tackle those problems? And then you will be able to understand the whole system which is being defined by you for proper research. Now, in that perspective, once you define, you know, the flow chart and the problem that you have in your mind, then definitely you will proceed to the research ideas. The problems encountered in your daily life is very important, because only the academic and bookish knowledge and bookish thinking is not at all applicable. Nowadays, I am reading new economics. Now, other than the classical, neoclassical, Keynesian, post-Keynesian, neo-Keynesian, new classical, new Keynesian, a new economics has come up. And this new economics is being particularly discussed throughout the globe since 2016. What are the areas? The theories which have been defined in the economic sciences, they are locally tested in new economics. So local testing is becoming one of the very important area of academic interest, so that we will be able to understand the theories more practicably. So in that perspective, I would say the problem when you encounter in your daily life, through your experience, through your observation, through your needs, plus your interest in that particular problem, that would be the research problem. So problem comes up with your experience, observation, needs, interest. So these four components are very important in your day-to-day life. Read professional literature. Suggestions of the investigators is very important. Magazines, conferences, seminars is very important too, because you should be able to actively participate in those things, so that you will find out your research problem, and your interest in that particular research will definitely create a more interesting area. Now, the research models. There are two important models: quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative model is basically a traditional model developed by positivists, and it is experimental and empiricist analysis is being made, and it is being advanced by Comte, Mill, Durkheim, and Locke, Newton, like this. These are the scientists who have developed the quantitative tools of research analysis. The second important component is qualitative. So this qualitative component is very constructive. It is a naturalistic. It is interpretative. Post-positive as the post-modern perspectives are being analyzed in the qualitative framework. Basically, this qualitative research it creates a literature in the economic science. Of course, the quantity, in quantity we find out methods, and the data is being interpreted very systematically. But in a qualitative terminology, so the qualitative assumptions and the framework of the theoretical models, in support of that, the econometric models can be developed, and the whole qualitative methodology can be developed in the research areas. Now, coming to this very important slide, if you go to the slides, is there anybody to handle? Go again. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Look at this. When your assumptions are ontological, epistemological, axiomological, rhetorical, and methodological. These are some of the assumptions. What are the questions you are dealt with? What is the nature of the reality? What is the relationship of the researcher to that of researched? What is the role of values? What is the language of the research? And what is the process of research? The last one, we are very familiar with this. But in quantitative terminology, you will see that in the ontological assumptions, objectivity and the singular reality is very important. In quantity, it is subjective and multiple. In epistemological research, you will see it is an independent, researcher is independent. Whereas in the qualitative methodology, researchers interact with that of researched. So interaction with the, the researcher go on speaking with some of the problems. So that is a very interesting. Axiomatological, in quantitative terminology, value free and unbiased. In qualitative terminology, it is a value laden and the biased one, because it focuses on certain assumptions, and some theoretical models can be developed through that particular connotation. Now in rhetorical assumptions, you will set some definitions: impersonal voices, use of accepted quantitative words, is the quantitative words are being recorded in that. Whereas in the qualitative terminology, it is informal, evolving some decisions, it is a personal voice and accepted qualitative words in your research area. In methodological assumptions, there are two important processes. One is the deductive process and another is the inductive process. In most of the economic researches which are being conducted in almost all universities in the country and abroad, mostly they are deductive process, cause and effect, static research design, so many things are being indicated in the deductive processes. And in the inductive process, it is a qualitative research, which is a very mutual simultaneous shaping of factors. Emerging designs are being developed and some theoretical models can be developed through this inductive process. In the modern and the traditional logistics, these two things are being discussed: one to all and all to one. Whether to begin with one and confine it to the all, or all is taken together and coming to the one, all to one, one to all. So like this, the methodological process is being defined in terms of qualitative and quantitative. So these two terminologies are very important, whether to work on this qualitative work or on the quantitative work, that is to be defined properly. Next, please. Next slide. Now, what are these meaning? Ontological, it is a philosophy of love on all creatures. Epistemological, it is a summary or conclusions. Axiological, it is self-explanatory analysis. Rhetoric, basically it refers to the art of language. And methodological issue defines the process of the research. Next slide, please. Now, if you look at this diagram, so what you will find on the OX axis, interest is being developed, and on the on OX axis, feasibility is measured, and on OY axis, interest is being taken up. Now, this concave curve, what it indicates, you will see this is a 3-star. First is three star. You will see it is good for professors because it is highly large gain of knowledge can be gained by the academicians. Whereas the other part, this lowest part and the extreme part of the x-axis, you will see that it is good for undergraduates. But in between these, there is some Pareto ophthalmology, and this Pareto ophthalmology basically it covers the research and the post-doctoral research, and this is a very important component. It is beneficial to both researchers and the guide who is supervising the whole work. And the very poor component of the research is this red stars. That is, these are not good problems because very small interest and small visibility is being taken up here. So what is expected is that this Pareto front, which is indicated by this arrow, it should be towards y-axis, so that the large number of qualitative and quantitative research can be developed in that perspective. So it is a very hard task before the researchers to work on particular such areas. Don't undertake some, low significant problems, easy problems, short term pop problems, so that it will create an interest there only, and they will lose their appearance, they disappear from that particular area. So in this perspective, it would be better to have this optimality so that it is good for the postdoctoral work, and it is also good for the PhD students. And the last part, steps, 10 steps in research activities is very important. Last slide, please. Now look at this 10 steps to good research. The first step is literature search and understand the rationale of the problem. So this is the very important task of the researchers. You should be able to understand and identify the problem. If you couldn't understand, go to the topic, find out the problem. But begin with the problem so that your subject matter of research and destination will be properly defined. Then the second step is identification of the key unknowns and the research questions. Because researchers' problems are beyond the imagination of the common academician. Because researchers' identification to the key unknowns are very important, and that should be explored properly with some question number one, problem number two. So like that, the questions of unknown keys is to be explored very systematically so that your research area will be confined with that particular problem area. Then the third step would be the aims and objectives of your research. Why you are conducting such type of research? What is the problem? What is the area that you are interested to cover? What are your objectives of the research? And then fourth step starts identification of the hypothesis to be tested. The hypothesis is one of the very important component of the research. When you are putting the hypothesis, it should be tested. 5 steps of the testing of hypothesis should be taken into account. So those hypotheses which have been framed, they should be testable. And basically, the hypothesis may be in some words, set of words, or one sentence, or some set of sentences. So that should be very properly identified. Both null and positive hypotheses are to be defined properly. Then the fifth stage starts when, after your formation of the hypothesis, identify the key deliverable. What is these deliverables? So with these hypotheses, what you are going to say? What is to be delivered to the students or the research experts in front of the examiners? What you are going to deliver? What are the issues? Issue number one, issue number two, and testing of the hypothesis and its results, that should be properly identified. Then starts the sixth step, that is identify the key resources. What are the resources available? Resources in the sense, the literature, secondary source of data. If secondary source of data is inadequate, then go to the primary data, and then the data management tools, follow the data analysis, use some graphical presentations, mathematical presentations, equations, econometrics models, quantitative tools, so that can be properly defined and identified. And then coming to the time framework for the researchers, this is very important because there is some limitations to the research. Once you registered, before 6 years, you should be able to submit it. That is the period which is being defined by the University Grants Commission. But that time framework is very important. Now I have seen some people still they are working 25 years back, they have registered, but still they are working 25 years. So this is the outdated research problem and outdated research work which they are mostly interested. But time framework is very, very important. Then come up with the workflow model, like a flow tree. You should be able to workflow model. So the first assumptions, when is to be tested, the first hypothesis, when it should be tested, how it should be tested, what are the data which are essential for that particular testing, and what are the techniques that you are using, and what are the results. The results you can finally come up with those things. The ninth step is again is very crucial, because risk and risk mitigation techniques can be identified. For example, some people register their PhD problem, and when they go to the field, then they say that data is not available. Field work do not respond to the research problem, or the secondary source of data is not available through the published work and reports, then the risk increases. So in almost all processes of the research, you will see the researcher has to face so many risks. And how to mitigate those risks is again a task in the ninth step of the research. To mitigate those risks, if data is not available, how to gather it. So what data is to be accessed, how it should be accessed, how it should be analyzed, what are the risks and mitigation of it. So that task is a very important, crucial task of the researcher. And lastly, you will see the idea for the research project comes in. And the whole process you will see. So after the particular process is over, you will come to a certain conclusion, and you would say that something is identified with this research. Something is explored through this research problem. Something is writable, publishable, and it is a new thing in the literature. So in that perspective, undertake your research and proceed towards that particular problem and explore it properly, conclude it very properly with all research ethics. Research ethics is very important, because citation, references, putting the references, avoiding the plagiarism, and all these etiquettes, research etiquettes have to be followed very systematically. And then you will come up with a very good research problem, and it is properly value to the literature, value to the practical value to the nation to solve the problems. So in that perspective, the research problem and its identification becomes a very, very crucial issue. So many people I have seen, the students comes up with questionnaire, and again students comes up to meet the investigator saying that, sir, whatever topic you give, I will work. So this may not be the work, because researcher should have some interest, motivation, and he has some read literature on that. He has some questions which are being discussed with the investigators or the supervisors, so that he will be properly guided and he will be brought to the particular problem, and the destination has been properly defined in that perspective. So those who are ready to work on the research, so they should take care of all these things. Research problem is very important to the beginners. Research methodology is very important to those who are working, and those who are on the writing aspects, they should be able to understand the academic writing models and the research ethics which is required for the research projects. With these few words, I once again thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to interact with some of the problems with the academicians. This is a large gathering of the academicians. So many papers and participants have come up with their models and the research problems, and those things are going to be published by the college. So with this, I thank the college organizers, principal, trustees for their efforts and the keen interest in the research. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very outstanding and knowledgeable lecture. And I am handovering this session to Dr. Marcus sir for a thanking note. Marcus sir, please continue. Margat sir, Margat sir, please unmute yourself. Margat sir, please unmute yourself.
Just a bit, sir. Good morning to all invited speakers and dear participants. First online lecture thanking note of Dr. Vasant Jugale, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your outstanding lecture on exploring the research problems, methods, and models. The information you have given about research methodology, models, and the methods, and the 10 steps of good research, which added in our knowledge of research. So thank you very much, sir, on behalf of our organizing committee. And now I hand over to Dr. Waghmare, sir, for further conference proceeding. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. The next online session, I would like to invite for introduction Dr. Professor H.R. Rao sir for give the short biodata reading of senior lecturer and librarian, Rampton University, Dr. Janice Fernandez. Janice Fernandez, madam, are you there? Hello. Janice Fernandez, madam. Janice Fernandez, madam. Janice Fernandez, madam, are you there?
Morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Please continue, ma'am.
Yeah, sure.
Before you start lecture, I would like to request Dr. Professor Rao sir to give the introduction part. Rao sir, please continue.
Well. I'm sure listening to Dr. Vasanta Jugale, sir, was a treat for your brain. And now I take the privilege to introduce to you equally distinguished speaker for the second session, Dr. Janice Fernandez. She, by profession, is a library manager, Roehampton Library, London, community librarian, London Borough of Wandsworth. She brings in 31 years of rich experience and specialized in areas like quality control, information literacy, innovative techniques in librarianship, human resources, and so on. Her key skills include customer service, interpersonal skills, use of changing ICT, competency in library software. She is the recipient of many prestigious awards. Some of them are GLL Award UK, Best Paper Awards in many conferences at national and international level. Dr. Janice has to her credit more than 11 important research publications. She is the speaker of choice and is invited to give her presentations as keynote speaker in many conferences, webinars, workshops, FDPs, etc. She, through her profession, spreads information literacy, and during her spare time, she serves the society through various church activities. I am sure you will enhance your knowledge and perspective regarding techniques of writing research paper. Enjoy listening to Dr. Janice Fernandez. Thank you.
Madam, please continue.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Can I share my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Already share. I have already shared the PPT.
No, I can then change the slides.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I will.
Yeah, if I share the screen, then it's easier.
Okay, whether I have to remove this PPT?
Yes, that would be good.
Okay, ma'am. Please share, ma'am.
You'll have to, yeah.
May I help you?
That's done?
Yes, yes, it
Yes,
is
can you
appearing.
also? Okay, fine.
It is visible.
Yeah, thank
Please
you.
continue, ma'am.
A very good morning to you all.
Good morning,
And
ma'am.
thank you for the opportunity to share some knowledge, to gain some knowledge, and to have this amazing. Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
Yes. Thank you. What I would like to talk about today is the techniques of writing a research paper, and I'm looking at it as a scientific approach to information dissemination. Some of the things that we're going to look at today. I'm going to look at the research cycle, the title or the selection of the topic, abstracts and keywords. I'm basically looking at exactly how a research paper looks like. So your introduction, the objectives, the review of your literature, the methodology of your research, your data analysis and findings, suggestions, conclusion, and of course the references. That's basically the flow of how a research paper should go. And let's look at it. What I've tried to do is, and I think that this time is really apt for it. Out here in the UK, this is the time for gardening. This is the time to grow something new. I think back in India as well, this is the time for farming. It's the thing of a seed, or basically a thought as small as a seed, which you germinate into the soil, which you sort of cultivate, and which then grows out into a plant. I'm trying to draw this analogy between farming or gardening and the process of research, if that works for you. And let's see how it goes. So at every stage of the slides, if you sort of try and draw a parallel with farming, you'll probably see the whole research process. Let's begin. The first question, why do we write a research paper? Do we need to write it? Don't always look at what profit it will bring you or what interest it will bring you, but look in the sense of, is there a need for it? Begin by saying it is an opportunity to gain more knowledge on an interesting topic. The interest basically lies with you to begin with, and then you are going to extend this interest in this topic to other people around you, maybe your peers, your colleagues. Also, you are sort of connecting to other people who are doing research on the same topic. You have done some research, you've got some results, you find that the results of your research are amazing. You need to disseminate the results of this research to society. You learn valuable skills. Absolutely, you do. Better reading, better writing, better analyzing and interpreting of results or data, more informed decision making, and better communication. You build a scientific thought process. And let me tell you this from my own experience. I have realized that every little thing I start thinking logically. You know, you sometimes lose your car keys and you think where I've kept them, and you start searching helter-skelter. Or if you think scientifically, you work back your steps and see where you looked at them first, or where you probably remember having looked for them or found them first, and you start thinking more scientifically. I think research creates that sort of thought process, that sort of bent of mind. You create a base for lifelong learning. Absolutely. You don't stop with your PhD. You don't stop with one research paper. You sort of go about. So that's the idea. You look at a seed and you sort of, it flows. Absolutely. So what is research? A very simple elementary definition that all of you must have known. It's got a few words that I've sort of tried to underline: systematic, investigation, facts, and something new. And if you look at these words, that's what research should be to you. So it's basically the detailed study of a subject. So you're trying to find something new. This is a quote that I really like. That's from Stephen Hawking, that says that no one undertakes research in physics with the intention of winning a Nobel Prize. It's the joy of discovering something that no one knew before. And to each one of you here today, I would like to wish you this. I would like to wish you that joy of discovering something amazing. Hold on to that joy. Don't make it mechanical. Don't make research very mechanical. Make it very childlike. Make it a basic curiosity. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough. So let's look at the research cycle. Basically, a few steps, and you will probably find this in every research lecture that you listen to. So basically, the identification of the research problem, review of literature, because you're looking at stuff that other people have already done before. You're standing on the shoulders of giants. You're not reinventing the wheel. So someone has done some sort of research, and then you're sort of basing your research either more in that direction or as a tangent to what someone has already discovered before. You may or may not have a hypothesis. A hypothesis is just a statement that you say is going to happen. So a classic example that I remember, and what I studied when I studied way back, was that if it rains, the sale of umbrellas goes up. Just a hypothesis. You're going to do research, and then you're going to find out whether it's true or false. You collect data through various methods: observations, interviews, surveys, oral histories, different methods. You're going to analyze that data. You're going to put all that data into a form, into a table, into something, a one piece thing where you can then analyze it. And then when you draw some sort of conclusion from that, or where you interpret it. So this is the data. This is what I have found out. So this actually goes on to tell me this. That's your interpretation of the data. And then from there, you draw some sort of conclusions. So do the sale of umbrellas really go up in the monsoon? That's your conclusion from your research. And then some sort of recommendations. So you would probably recommend something to other people for the future. And then one of the important elements is dissemination. So this research that you've done, you've got to tell other people so that other people don't again start from scratch. This sort of research, this research that you have done should be available as an open knowledge sharing. So how you disseminate the results of your research is normally through a research paper. So we now come back to the research paper. In the previous lecture, Dr. Jugle has explained some of these things really beautifully, and I draw a parallel to his slides when he spoke about the selection of the research topic, where he said you should be motivated. It should be your interest. And I I strongly go by what he says in this bit where he says, absolutely, if you aren't motivated, if you don't like the topic, it's going to be left by the wayside. I have seen a number of people who've registered for PhD, and somewhere along the line, if you stop, it's because the topic itself was not enough to capture and hold your interest long enough. You start with a general area of interest, then you narrow the field. Do you want to talk about classification? Are you keen on information technology? Are you talking about customer services? Do you want to look at quality control? Look at some sort of a broad topic. As you read more about that topic, you sort of narrow it down to what bit of quality control do you like? Accreditations, ISO, what bit of customer service do you like? And then you can narrow down to that. Your topic should be interesting, current, and manageable. Talk to your mentors, experts, and colleagues. Absolutely. I think brainstorming, communication, sharing of ideas and views is what sort of moves you into the right direction at every stage. I suppose we all have mentors, we all have people whom we talk to. That's a really good practice. Reading. Reading as in you do a literature review. That's like a more formal reading. But reading as in, do you subscribe to blogs? Do you follow people on LinkedIn? Do you attend some sort of maybe online conferences, seminars? A lot of stuff is free. At this moment, because of the pandemic, you can connect to a lot of places and get a lot of information. Do we make use of this information to sort of change our thought process or sort of gear our thought process into a particular area? Observations, interviews, absolutely. Write down all your ideas. I may be a little old-fashioned when I say write down all your ideas, but write down all your ideas. I have noticed that at the end of your research paper, when you're sort of writing your conclusion, that's when you're stuck, and then you're thinking, oh no, but I have all these notes and bits and pieces of paper, whatever method works for you, whether it's in electronic mode or whether it's just a paper and pencil mode. But make sure that your ideas are all in one place that you can get them out when you need them. I don't need to reiterate anymore that it's your own desire and interest that matters. So research is to see what everybody else has seen and to think what nobody else has thought. And if you look at research, I think scientific research in the field of science is the most classic example of thinking. How, if you think about it, how, if you click on a switch, the room is flooded with light. So that's to see what everybody else has seen. So you saw that when the sun comes up, there's light in the world. Can you sort of replicate something similar to make a dark room light up? I'm sure somebody has really thought about things like that. I'm drawing a parallel with all the different grains that you would have. Which one would you select? We're going back to farming now. Which one would you select to sow in your field? Which flower do you want to plant? Now come to the title of the research paper. Okay, the selection of the topic and the title of the research paper are two things that should marry. Because it's not the same but it should be compatible.
Namaste, ma'am.
Can you hear me? It should be compatible. Someone's audio is on, I think. Thank you. The title of the research paper is your initial impression of the research article. Be concise, precise, and complete. And I'll tell you more about this. Should be interesting, thought-provoking, and grammatically correct. Absolutely, it should be grammatically correct. It should also be correct in the sense of where you use your cap letters, where you put your colons, whether it's a comma, whether it's a full stop, whether it's a single colon. I'm putting a few research papers that I picked from Google Scholar, and I just picked them with regard to COVID, and I want you to read them and see if they are complete in itself. I want you to read the title and figure out whether there's anything missing in it, or do you think that that's a good title for a research paper? So that's the first one. That's the second one. That's an interesting one though. COVID-19 disruptions disproportionately affect female academics. BMI as a risk factor for clinical outcomes in patients hospitalized with COVID-19 in New York. COVID-19 and the 5G conspiracy theory. COVID-19 pandemic, what can we learn from past research in organizations and management? So the idea of having a good title is that the title should be complete in itself. When you read the title, you should feel like reading the paper. If that's what you're searching for, you know that if you go on Google Scholar, and I say Google Scholar, not Google, please. We're not looking at Wikipedia. We're just looking at Google Scholar, some sort of a good research base. You put a search term in Google Scholar and you get a list of articles, scholarly articles, which are the ones that you pick to read. The ones where the title itself is complete and tells you what the article is about. So when you write a research paper, your title should be such that when other people search, they should get an idea of what the research article is all about. Does that make sense? The other thing I want to share here, and before I begin an abstract, let me tell you this. That is a list of all the presentations that you'll be doing today. And I read through the title of every single one of them. And I marked out some which I thought I would like to read. I also marked out some where I thought you need to look at the title correctly. And at the end of this presentation, if you're happy, I can share with you my thoughts about your title. We now move to the abstract and the keywords. What's the abstract? Normally, if you are writing a research article for a conference, they'll probably send you the number of words in the abstract. Abstract, as the word itself suggests, is a condensation, a short bit of your whole research article. So your abstract is basically the summary of your research article. It should be short, but it should be impactful. And I've just put a few bits which I think your abstract could cover. The aim of your research article, the audience, the problem itself, the methodology that you've used, your results, and your recommendations, just in maybe 100 words. But I think that's the skill, isn't it? That's the skill of trying to put the whole research article into a few lines. You keep working on the abstract, and when your paper is complete, that's when I think your abstract will be complete. The second part that I would like to talk about is the keywords. So basically, keywords are searchable terms for your article, 4 or 5 words, diverse, different words, but precise words. I'm looking at the classic example of online shopping, and I think all of you will agree with me. If you try and shop, say, for a pair of trousers, whatever words you use, it still leads you to what you want. Go back and look at Amazon, classic example. I think your keywords should be like that. They should be searchable and they should be retrievable so that your article can be retrieved irrespective of how we search it. That's why your words should be diverse, okay, different, but still precise, exact. There we are in our process. We now look at the introduction to the research article, okay? It's normally you begin with a brief background of the topic. So if you're talking in terms of, say, library services, you talk maybe in terms of general libraries, or you talk in terms of, say, higher education, or you talk in terms of customer services. You start with a brief background of your topic. You start from a general and move to a more specific thing. You explain the relevance to the audience. So why is that research article? What's the problem you're looking at? Modifying it as you go along. Absolutely. We don't want the introduction too long. We also don't want it too short. And you, I think, are the best judgment of it. Normally, if you write a research article, there will be a length specified, or there will be the number of words for the research article specified. That should be a good pointer as to how you proceed with length. You sort of mold it. I look at it as a potter and clay. You sort of keep molding it as you go along, and will be complete when the paper is over. Absolutely. It's a good beginning, though. If you write a good introduction, you start, you know that it's going in the right direction. There we are. Let's look at the objectives of your study. What you want to achieve? What you want to measure? Do you want to measure the relationship between monsoon and umbrellas? Really 4 statements, I guess, should be okay. You state it in very simple terms, the objectives of the study. You write it in a more logical way. So you probably first study something and then you try and devise a model for it. Some of the words that you use to identify, to study, to find out. And I want to say that these words are not to be used in the title. So when this is over, please go back and look at the title of your research paper. And if the title of your research paper begins with 2, you need to probably modify it. The findings of the research should correlate with the objectives of your study. So when you finish with the research, go back to your objectives, keep them side by side and see point by point if your findings correlate with your objectives. We're getting there, isn't it? Literature review, absolutely. And as a librarian, I very much accrue to this point of you look at what has already been done, why, the how, and the where of it. You're looking at somebody who's already done some sort of research. You are then looking at gaps. And then you're saying you can fill up those gaps. It's more like a jigsaw puzzle, if you can think of it that way. So there are all these bits and pieces of research that people have done, and you're putting it all together. And then there's that one piece which is missing. And then your research is going to be that missing piece in that whole universe of knowledge. Where do you go to? The library. Whether it is physically 4 walls and a library, or if it is an online library. Now, if you're looking at subscriptions, you're looking at open access, and there's so much of open access information available on the internet today. I mentioned before, we're looking at Google Scholar and not Wikipedia. And I'm sure all of you know how easy it is to edit Wikipedia. Try doing it. It's really easy. So something which can be edited that easily, I don't think would hold weight as part of references to a research article. Create a bibliography as you go along. Absolutely. And I will tell you a shortcut, a very rudimentary way to creating a bibliography. What I follow is, I read a good research article, and Google Scholar, of course, gives you the citations to the article. So you can just copy and paste those into a Word file, a simple Word file. The other option is you just go to the address bar and copy the link, paste it in a Word file, keep it somewhere where as you go along, you can then open those links and go back to the articles. And then that will help you to create a bibliography at the end. We're looking at terms, copyright and plagiarism. Copyright is the protection that is provided by the law to the original author of the intellectual property. So I have a research paper to my credit, and I have, let me tell you, that's my recent research paper that's been published in a Polish journal. And if someone else took part of my article, but wrote their own name as an author, well, I wouldn't like that. So that's why there's copyright. That's the protection that's given to me by law. And out here in the UK or in the US, it's really strongly enforced. Plagiarism is presenting someone else's work as your own. So no one says that you cannot take articles, cannot take bits from my research article. You definitely can. What you need to do is to give me credit, is to say that this bit, this paragraph, this idea belongs to this author. And that's what you do in the references. If you don't do that, that's plagiarism. Did you look at that? That's a good cartoon. If I say that's mine, if I say it was my thought and I drew it and it was my idea, that's plagiarism. But if I give credit to the person the company, the individual who actually is responsible for the creation of that intellectual content, that's what we should be doing. Let's look at the importance of literature review. So I go by the 5 R's: read, review, recognize, repackage, and references. So you're reading and then you're sort of comparing, drawing a sort of a parallel and seeing what has been done. Remember my image of this jigsaw puzzle? What has been done? What hasn't been done? Sorry. What are the gaps and why your research is necessary to fill up this gap, this bit? Repackage it. And then obviously provide references through Mendeley or EndNote. Okay. So you're slowly going from this garden of multicolored, multi-talented type flowers to your own research in creating something new. If you look at the analogy that I'm now drawing to gardening, so you're looking at this garden of different flowers, different colors, different types, different sizes and shapes. And then from that, what you're actually going to evolve is your own creation. That makes sense? I think there's a bit of a time where we could sort of, your mind is probably full of lots of ideas. My mind is too. Let's refresh it for a bit. And I'm going to just wait for maybe a minute and see if you can do this one. That's a classic one. So if you can move 3 topics to form 3 squares, and I'll give you a minute, okay? The idea of having this in the middle of my presentation is to get you to think laterally, is to sort of get your thought process into more lateral thinking, into how researchers should actually think. Don't think in the usual ways, but look out all possible options. Put it all together, and then something will evolve out of it. I'm sure you're all working frantically with your papers and pens. I don't know how many of you have got it. But for those of you who have you got something like this? Have you got something like this? All you needed to do was take out the top 3 toothpicks, okay? But I would like you to do such sort of things to refresh your mind, do such sort of things to get your mind attuned to an idea of thinking. You know, nothing's given on a platter. And I think the cut and paste is not an option for us. Absolutely no. The answer given to us is not an option for research scholars. You think yourself, and you will probably come out with another method, not like this one. You'll probably have another answer to it. Think. Okay, to go back now to research methodology. So basically, the word, as the word suggests, methodology will say how you do it. It will tell you specific methods to address such problem. You start with a pilot study, use a small sample size sometimes. Probably your research is for 100 people, use 10. See what happens. Look at your participants. Look at your scope and limitations. You can't do it beyond a certain area. You can't do it beyond a certain age group. You can't do it beyond certain profession or qualification. That's your scope. What sort of procedure you're going to use, what sort of instruments you're going to use. You stand on the shoulders of another, absolutely. And the good part is that others can use this model of research. So once you're done with it, and when you disseminate the results of the research in a research paper, others can use the same model and maybe build on it. So that's what you're going to do. Your result, that's how we proceed. The next step is obviously the collection of your data, analysis, and interpretation. We're now going into the thick of the research itself and look at it in terms of not just the paper where you're going to write about it, but actually doing the research. Can you visualize? Can you look at yourself doing this bit? You collect data through questionnaires or interviews, or oral history is an option that is a lot used in Western countries. You record what people say. And then you put that down in double quotes as what people say. You use software packages, you will summarize your data, you will establish some sort of a relationship between variables, and you will determine some sort of a pattern or a trend, which will probably evolve out of that. This, when you interpret the data, it also comes back to the reason for research in the first place. So why did you want to do that research in the first place? So from the data that you have collected in terms of different, putting it down into a table and getting some sort of an analysis, some sort of an interpretation out of it. A number of packages are available and you could use them to sort of collect data. I love Excel, and I love to explore what Excel has to offer. So I think if you sort of get into maybe using formulae or putting it into charts and graphs, and the Excel itself is a very powerful tool, but you need to probably go a little bit more into depth and try and get the best out of it. So you've done your research, you've got everything, you now have your findings. That's the last bit, your suggestions, and of course, the conclusion. So based on the research that you conducted, the data that you collected, and the analysis that was done, is your findings are based. It should match the objectives of the research study. Like I told you, when you come back at the end of the research, you go and look at your objectives and see if you have. You said that you wanted to study this. So did your findings help you to study what it is that you set to do in the first place? Your findings should be presented logically and sequentially. It should be very systematic. The visual appeal is always better. And rather than giving a table, is it not better to give a pie chart or a bar graph, which is easier to understand? You should put down your areas for future research. So maybe, hopefully, someone else can do it. Of course, your conclusion. That's how we went to Mars, isn't it? That's how we went to Mars. Last bit is references, and as you are all aware, it's the list of all the sources that you use, alphabetically stated at the end of your research article. Give the author credit. Also, readers, if they want to, they can go back and read those articles, which makes sense. There are various styles and references, and probably when you get the brochure for a conference, they normally state what sort of style they would like you to use for the references. I just put in three examples. And if you're giving like a URL, then you normally say when you access it, you need to put the date in. Sometimes these articles, especially the e-resources, may not be available later on. But if you say when you access, you found that bit, so then you sort of put the date, which says you access this article on so-and-so date. There we are. Some additional but important stuff. And one of the most important things is the last date for submission. Put that down somewhere in big words, and make sure that your research article is complete at least a minimum of 24 hours before the last submission date. You are all aware of technologies and how it is that when you want to send your article to the presenter, a publisher, or you want to send it across, that's when you'll have some problems with the internet. Don't wait for the last day. Absolutely. How, if you have joint authors, who's the one whose name should be first? What's your page layout like? What's the margins like, the font size? And I think before you start typing your research article, get this bit right. Open a Word page, look Set your margins right, set your font right, set your line spacing, whether it's single line or 1.5, number your pages, and then you start, and then it just flows. Check for grammatical and language errors, any acknowledgements you want to make, any abbreviations that you might want to explain about. We're getting there. That's the path. I've put in a few quotes that I think would motivate you. And since I've drawn a parallel to gardening, here's the first one. Plant a garden is to believe in tomorrows. Look at your garden as your finished research article. You start with planting a seed and you know that you're going to get there. Like wildflowers, you must allow yourself to grow in all the places people thought you never would. Look at areas for research where people never look at. And you will definitely come out with something. If you look back, and I like to draw an analogy to science when I say that it was always believed that the sun went around the earth, and somebody got up and said, no, the earth goes around the sun. That somebody had to face a lot of trials, but it's belief, it's research, and then it's an end result. Absolutely, plant a garden, absolutely. It's the joy of the flower that blooms after all your effort. It's the joy of a completed research article after a number of sleepless nights. Stay grounded. Stay out there. Don't give up. Halfway through the article is as the time when you think, oh, I can't do this. Get on with it, and you know that the end result will be really good. Go for it. Go for it. Absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to delve into the amazing world of research and to add value to the profession. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. So nice of your lecture. Very outstanding and knowledgeable lecture have been provided. I would like to hand over this session to Dr. Margas sir for thanking note. Margas sir, please continue.
Yes, sir. Good morning to all. Second online lecture thanking note of Dr. Janice Fernandez. Thank you very much, madam, for your wonderful lecture on techniques of writing research papers, a scientific approach. Madam, your lecture.
Sir, please unmute yourself. Margas sir, please unmute yourself. Margas sir,
Really wonderful, which will be added knowledge in the young researcher. Thank you so much, madam, for your wonderful lecture. And now I hand over to Dr. Waghmare, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I would like to invite the third session, online session of One Day International Conference. I would like to hand over this session for biodata reading of third resource person, named as Dr. Eugene Thinley, Senior Lecturer, Rianban Rinter University, Royal University, Bhutan. I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Umesh Pawar sir. Umesh Pawar sir, please continue for biodata reading.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Please continue, sir.
Good morning, all. I would like to introduce third session's resource person.
Sir, please, sir, please, either you have to stop your mobile or your laptop. Is echo going on?
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Please continue.
Good morning, all. I would like to introduce today's third session's resource person, Professor Yugen Thinle. Professor Thinle completed his MBA in finance from Webster University, USA. He has expertise from the couple of training programs from Singapore and Bhutan. Professor Thinle also expertise into the documentation officer as well as he was assistant manager in the National Assembly Secretariat Government of Bhutan. At present, Professor Thinle is senior lecturer, Norbuling Writer College, Bhutan. He has good international academic experience. We are eagerly waiting to listen you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Respected Professor Eugen Thinle, sir, are you there? Thinle, sir? Professor Thinle, sir?
Yes.
Sir, please
I'm
continue.
here. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir. Please continue, sir.
Yes. May I share my PPT?
Can you share from there? Whether I have to help you share here?
Yes, share. It says share screen, so I have it here. So
Yes,
before
sir,
I
please
share, thank you very much for the introduction, Dr. Power, and Waghmare Brothers and SPK College and distinguished guests and academicians. I thank Waghmare Brothers for this opportunity, and it's a pleasure. And since till yesterday, I was traveling, and in Bhutan, it's a mountainous country, so internet is a very iffy sometimes. So please do forgive me. It's raining right now, and it's quite cloudy here. It's in the Himalayas, by the way. And if I get cut off. So now, without much ado, I would like to share my screen with due permission from Mr. Waghmare.
Please, sir, continue, sir.
Yes, okay, sir. Thank you.
Would you share or whether how to share?
Yeah, I'll share, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is my...
Yes, this is visible, sir, please.
Yes. Now I'm going to put it on this mode. So price and opportunities and analysis of news from around the world. So just like what Dr. Janice and Dr. Jugal and other speakers have said before me, I have tried to make sure that the sources are all there as not to create any misunderstanding with the people who have already written the stories. In the beginning, I was planning to make 40 or 50 slides, but given time limitation, I've stuck down to around 25 roughly. So you can see some pictures from my country as well as from around the world and what's going on Facebook and how it affects price and how it has given opportunity to know people and business houses and companies around the world. So we have from Bollywood actors to King of Turn to, behemoths like Amazon. That's what you have. So anyway, some snippets. What I have here is I'm trying to over 70% of fresh vegetables in Singapore. In Singapore's Little India are flown from Tiruchirappalli and Chennai in Tamil Nadu. Amidst the COVID-19, vegetables have become at least 3 times more expensive since March 2020. So in my country,
sir, sorry for disturb.
Please,
sir, yes, please sir. Increase your volume, please.
Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you're audible, but okay. Increase the volume, please.
Okay. Oh, increase the volume.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm trying to increase. So anyway, this is how much it's giving me right now. So anyway, so prices have become 3 times in some of the newspaper. That's what's written, the Straits Times. The government can do little to control commodity price. That's in Quinsel, that is a Bhutanese newspaper. And we have the merchants at Broadway and Ernakulam markets are happy with the return of customers, but they say the steep increase in the price of essentials, falling fuel price hike, is stopping the customers from doing large-scale shopping from the Indian Express. The majority of Americans support price controls to aid families during COVID-19 pandemic. That is from the Forbes. High food price are hunger's new best friend. We already have a conflict, climate and COVID-19 working together to push more people into hunger and misery. So that's from UN News. So all these are just snippets from news. And just to go around a little more in depth, what's been reported in some other newspapers. This is what we have here. Price news. World Food Programme said countries most likely to experience higher food price inflation are those that depend on food imports. So as far as Bhutan is concerned, my country, we used to be self-sufficient. We used to be landlocked and we had no choice but to be self-sufficient. Now, after we opened up, we have become a little lazy and we have started importing more and exporting less. So our economy is driven by imports rather than exports. So you can just imagine what can sometimes happen. And it's like, unlike Japan after the Second World War, the Americans said, we'll grow the rice for you. The Japanese said, no, we'll grow it ourselves. So the thought process could be a little different. But of course, thanks to the pandemic, we are learning. And fortunately, we have not had shortages of basic essentials. And we have, of course, kept the borders for essentials from India open. By the way, Bhutan is bordered by India in the south and China in the north. And our traditional trade partners are India, and we get a lot of produce from India. And on top of that, in the north of the country, it's full of mountains, the Himalayan ranges. So in the olden days, when we did trade with Tibet, it was very difficult because passes would open only twice a year in summer, and there were only few passes that you could. There are two ways that you can get into Tibet, whereas in the southern part, which is bordering India, it was easier. So that's what you have. So it shows that the UN report says that people who depend on imports, they don't have any facilities set up. What that happens is, obviously, thanks to the COVID and thanks to strict COVID protocols, you are not able to bring in imports, basic essentials like salt for sometimes, or rice or lentils, for example. So, you can imagine how that goes. So meanwhile, currency depreciation has further driven up local food prices in such as Zimbabwe, Syria, Ethiopia, and Venezuela. And even in our country, it has dollar to neutral was 71.69 last year before pre-COVID. Now it has gone to 76. And of course, in black market, it has gone to almost 82. So the sources there, just to let Dr. Janice know, so that people don't come after me saying that it's not yours. So I've tried my best to put everything in inverted commas. And Professor Jugal and Dr. Janice, doing a little bit of research, does tell you that it is always better to give credit where credit is due. And I fully agree with my two predecessors who just spoke. And this is price in Bhutan. And by the way, the picture that you see is the king of Bhutan and his brother going around the country and talking to people and trying to reassure them that you just need to wear masks, you just need to do basic things like washing your hand and try not to gather too many people or for ceremonies or religious or for any other reasons. That's the only way to keep COVID at bay. So price of meat increased by around 30%, followed by vegetables over 20% and fruits and dairy products by around 15%, according to the National Statistical Bureau. Prices of betel nuts and betel leaves also increased by 20%. By the way, we Bhutanese have this habit of chewing betel nut that is called pan in India, And our pound is not with all the mithais and all the sweets and all these things, but it's just plain betel nut, lime, and betel leaves. And it has become one of the essentials, you know. It's kind of, they say that it gives you a kind of warmth, or it is addictive or something like that. Well, it depends on who you're talking to. I eat betel nut too, but I'm not addicted to it. Of course, the smell keeps me away from it. But if you don't eat it, it is tough to bear the smell when somebody is eating near you. So, but the vegetables, meat, and all these things, they have appreciated. Price have appreciated. The month-on-month consumer price index in October increased by 31%, with food price increased by 0.41%. So 0.31%, 0.41%. Price of alcohol beverages decreased by 0.92%, which is a good news. Of course, the late Rishi Kapoorji might not agree with me. Well, it decreased because it was something that, as you already know, it would not. What happened was people are not allowed to gather. That's why the consumption decreased. So people are not allowed to go around to the pubs and all, as you can see from news from England or US or Australia, where going to bar, or New Zealand, going to bar is part of social life. You know, in the evening going to bar, or Japan, all these pubs or bars have been closed. So that's why it went down. But of course, the late Rishi felt that, you know, the police who are managing the street without being exposed to all this virus, and they need some kind of release. And of course, people too, who are so used to socializing and all. So that's where you have from. So now, Vox EUR policies are, the policymakers are in search for suitable stabilization policy measures. So relative importance of the forces working on supply and demand. So price, CEPR, Center for Policies.
Please mute yourself. Thinley sir, please continue. Sorry for this.
No, it's okay. I thought I'll just wait for the person to mute, and that's what happened. Thank you very much. So price, vox.eu.org, CEPR's policy portal, Center for, it's a European organization which does research and all. So some researchers have done this, and it is done by people who study economics and who have PhDs in economics. So I, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think I can manage a PhD in economics, having failed the subjects on many occasions during the undergrad and masters, but I struggled through. So I understand a little bit, but just wanted to share with you. Because now what happens is, in the face of businesses shutting down and people losing jobs, the only way to revive the economy is through stimulus. And it is a government or external agency who might help you if you're a poor country like Bhutan, or if you do have a decent cash reserve, by just not printing money, which is easy to do, but what you really have, you know. So policies are meant to weather this. Policymakers need to consider measures that shield productive capacity going forward. Policies are meant to weather disruption for non-economic reasons in the supply of goods and services, such as broken international supply chains or reduction in labor efficiency due to COVID-19. So one of the picture you saw was Mr. Sonu Sood from Bollywood, I think. A lot of my Indian colleagues and my Indian friends in India, I'm sure you know who he is. And what happened, interesting thing is that once the company shut down, a lot of laborers wanted to go home. And that's when Mr. Sood stepped in and he paid their fare to get to their village. And that's why I put him there, which is, you're not spending millions. Maybe in India, the transportation might be cheaper, but not during the COVID, maybe 200-300 to get to your village. And that's what he spent. And that's, you don't need to give billions to make drastic changes in people's lives. And they just wanted to get to their village. And in Bhutan also, by the way, we do not have skilled laborers, carpenters and masons, and we import all these skilled laborers from India because, by the way, the population of Bhutan is just 800,000, and we are not able to find enough people to do work. But thanks to COVID, people have no choice but to do that. They're losing jobs too, by the way. And what happens is the Bhutanese labor shortages and their skills right now are no match with the Indian skills, which we used to import before the COVID, and which we still are doing in very limited quantities because we have all these COVID protocols where you have to stay in quarantine for 21 days before you can start your work if you're coming from abroad. So just to let you know, the last one, consider demand stimulus measures to address potential demand and deficiency arising from actual and expected income risk and high economic uncertainties. So obviously, as you can guess, the moment there are labor shortages, obviously, there's nothing that you can do or nothing that you can produce. Everybody's scared. Who wants to go to work? They rather stay home and, if possible, do work from home. But when you are in the production or just in time or whatever, you have to have hands in the plant, on the plant, turning all the wheels and creating products, unless you're in some country where everything is mechanized. Like what I used to read in 2011 was, in South Korea, if you employ a lot of machines instead of humans, you have different tax. That's what you have. So price reflects shifts in demand and supply, which is, I think, basic economics. So this is one of the figures that they had shown it. Share of firms and supply bottleneck, that is your blue line. And the blue line shows here, it shows that the bottlenecks have gone up and up. Now what happens is, China, India, especially China, they get a lot of raw materials from abroad because they don't have enough raw materials. And what I do know is that all this electronic waste, when the big container ships sail from Beijing across the Pacific to US or North America, it does not come back empty. It gets filled with all the scraps. And also due to the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and there are laws that says you cannot dump these on the land. You have to do so many things. And China is ready to take them back, and then recycle them and produce iPhones and everything that the rest of the world needs. And so from there, the bottleneck has been increasing. COVID intact, it has been increasing, and then orders have been decreasing. And this is the case because in Bhutan, what's happening is, in my country, and I think in all the countries, what we have found out is that COVID lives on any kind of surface. So when you import goods, if you import goods from places where COVID is a pandemic and spreading like wildfire, there is a good chance that the virus can live on the surface and you can import them. You don't need humans coming in, of course. So countries have policies that says any product or commodity that is entering the country must stay in quarantine or must be doused with sanitizers on a huge industrial scale. Like you're spraying all this, you're spraying this herbicides or insecticides to stem malaria or something like that. And when you do that, there's costs associated with it. And after all, just like in Singapore, they say that price has tripled. Given the technology that Singapore has, the kind of technology that Singapore has, if Bhutan were to do the same thing that Singapore did, our price would be 10 times because you would have to follow so many protocols. So we have done what we could. We have sprayed it. We have kept the shipments in certain designated areas for a certain number of days. And then when it finally comes to the retail shops, again, they're taking precaution. And all these things add up to the cost. So obviously, retailers are not able to get the price they want because the consumers like me, we're not willing to pay because why should I? It is a conservation mode. It's too much because people like most of us, we live from paycheck to paycheck. So it is hard. And we just rely on the basic essentials. That's what we need. So as you can see from the figure 1, and then another figure, this figure suggests that negatively, if you would like to read, negatively affected. Now, if you like to read, now what happens is it suggests that negatively affected firms experience both adverse demand and supply shifts. Adverse. Given the adverse situation, it is no surprise. Now, what you have, planned price decreases. So estimated probability, that's what you have. This figure shows the time series of the frequency of planned price decreases, top and prices bottom for each. Red, strong negative impact. Orange, negative impact. Black, no impact. Green, positive impact. So the red seems to be in 0.2 estimated probability. Now plant price increases. Again, it's the same thing. The frequency of all the lines in given month equals to the month sample average. Red, strong. Orange, negative impact. No impact. Green, positive impact. The frequency weighted average of all lines in a given month equals the month sample. So Dr. Waghmare will have the slide. So you can actually, if you want to do a detailed study, you can put the links here. This is all from them. So this is by the way, CPR is German, by the way, and this is done on German commodities, by the way. These professors, the PhD scholars, and all of them, they have carried out their research based on commodities in Germany, by the way. And well, given the time, Dr. Waghmare, do let me know if I'm within the time limit, and I'll try to go a little faster.
Continue.
Okay.
No, you're having timing, sir. Please continue.
Okay. And what happens is, so what I felt was, if you have this model, and I think this is a phenomenon that is, this COVID-19 is like the plague, for example. This is a phenomena. Madam Sarita, can you put off your mic, please? Thank you.
On the participation, please mute yourself. It is going to disturb you. Please mute.
So what I can say is that this pandemic, as you all know, this is happening all over the world. So this is a condition where the conditions obviously, when you study economics or something, conditions are different for different countries. Now, what happens is this is a condition that is similar all over the world. And it is an educated guess that conditions, economic conditions or activities will also be somewhat similar. Obviously, so vegetable prices continue to spike in Bhutan. So with local vegetables soaring, the typical resident can buy a kilogram of big green chilies, a kilogram of mushroom, and a bundle of asparagus with Nalta 1000. Nalta 1000 is basically equivalent to 1000 rupees because our Bhutanese currency is pegged to the Indian currency. And in terms of dollars, it would be 1/7 of a dollar, 1/7. Now, in certain cases, when the chilies came out, by the way, Madam Sarika.
Participants, Sarika Ringotwar, please mute yourself. Sarika Ringotwar. Sir, please continue. Sorry, sir.
Okay, so just to let you know, just like let's say onion in India is extremely important for any kind of cuisine, like spaghetti is in. Like onion, for example, if you're selling onions in India and all, it is a very precious commodity, and any kind of cuisine, onion is a must. Any whether you're preparing a vegetarian meal or a non-vegetarian meal like chicken or anything, chicken or fish, it's extremely important. And likewise, in Italy, it would be pasta or spaghetti, basically pasta, and in India, wheat also. And in Bhutan, we have something called chili, which is extremely important. Without chili, the food just does not taste good. So the chili was going at 700, and sometimes the green chilies, by the way. And usually when I went to market, I used to buy it at 120 to 200 maximum, but it went to 700. And onions.
Oh, absolutely.
Dear colleagues, dear participants, could you please mute yourself if you're not presenting, because you're disturbing the flow of the presenter. Thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear me. Can everybody hear me, La? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Continue.
Thank you. Thank you. High price causes what you have is at the source. So what happens is when retailers Madam and sirs, please stop talking unless you're presenting. Thank you very much. Madam Shruti. So high price causes at the source. For example, the farmers, they're taking advantage of the situation and they're just raising up the price. So that's what's happening. And then another one is the transportation cost. Obviously, in Bhutan, we are divided into 20 parts, small parts, not like states in India or the states in the US or the provinces or huge provinces abroad, or we have districts very small, but transportation from one area to another. So in the southern part of Bhutan, COVID has affected those areas. And what's happening is when you import vegetables from those areas, you need to follow the COVID protocols. And of course, that one adds up to the cost. And that's why it's a no-brainer that things have become expensive. Of course, the government did try to cap the price, price ceiling that you have in economics and price floor. So they did try to cap the price, but obviously it did not work because just like Adam Smith said in one of the articles, the news article that I read for this purpose, what happens is, if you try to cap it, suppliers are not able to supply you at the price that you want because their cost has risen up. So when their costs have gone up, how can they sell it at a lower price than what they have bought it for? It doesn't make sense, to anybody. So obviously you don't have supply, and there's very limited quantity available, or limited amount of essentials available that people will fight for. And of course, famine will set in. People who have a lot of money will obviously pay any amount to get what they need. It's not a matter of luxury anymore. So the Office of the Consumer Protection has asked shopkeepers and vendors not to manipulate the price of goods and ask consumers to report high price to the department. Customers have to submit a receipt of the purchase. So this measure by the government did not have much impact, by the way. So this is from our newspaper, and that's what happened. So the case for avoiding price controls in times of crisis, they don't work. And I'll say, sure. So in South Africa, what happened is the price of regulation do not regulate price explicitly, but seek to limit the extent to which prices respond to demand and cost factors during the disaster period. So this looks like a fair deal. The pricing regulations do not regulate prices explicitly, but seek to limit the extent to which price respond to demand and cost factors during the disaster period. This has given rise to a flood of consumer complaints and a number of investigations by the competition authorities. Now, I just mentioned about Adam Smith. If you're going to buy a product at high cost by paying a lot of money, and then you are going to sell it at a lower price, it just does not make sense. You're just throwing your money away. And businesses don't do that unless you have so much of it that you're like Bill Gates and you can afford to give to charity. So people are perfectly convinced that the rice with which they have. So in this case, people are perfectly convinced that the rice with which they have to contend for the moment is unnatural, artificial, and so wholly unjustifiable, being merely the wicked work of people who want to enrich themselves and who are given the power to do so not by the economic conditions. This has been so since the dawn of history, but no amount of historical retrospect seems to be of much use. The same absurdity crops up generation after generation. So human being human, and economics being a social science, they forget that when you bring in products, you have a cost if you are a business person. Consumers will say that, oh, this pandemic, you shouldn't do that, you should be charitable. A lot of religions say that, a lot of emotions and sentiments. But I think to be very fair to consumers, and if you are a business person yourself or your relatives are business people, it is something that we can all relate to. And if you have studied business or are into business, because what happens is this is not a work of wicked people who want to enrich themselves. It is just a matter of supply and demand and the cost factor, which is working against you, the consumers, who may not be as rich as Bill Gates or Mittal or Ambani. Adam Smith says, put differently, price regulates demand and supply, resulting in smaller shortages, freezing price changes, or seeking to reduce price below market determined levels is likely to maintain demand at levels which supply cannot meet. You cannot meet the supply, the demand, if you are the sole supplier. It is basic economics, because it is all down to cost, and that's when government has to step in and try to reduce the cost of transportation, which the government has tried to do by, of course, controlling the price of. We cannot control the price of oil, fuel, especially petrol and diesel here in Bhutan, because it happens. What's happening in India, it happens here too, by the way. Source conversation.com, case for avoiding price. This is from The Conversation. It's an Australian newspaper. I think it's I forgot. It's a source. It's a report in a website run in Australia, by the way. So price $3. Everything is a dollar. 58% said it would be very helpful or slightly helpful for the government to limit price companies can charge for certain goods in response to the pandemic. So in this case, $3 would be useful. Everything is a dollar or less than a dollar. If you have ever stopped, I think in India, there's something called everything for 100 rupees, less than 100 rupees, especially in Delhi. I think it was based on the American $3. Now, what happens is, of course, 100 rupees is much more than a dollar. So when you go to $3, what I read long time back, I think it was around 2009 then when I was doing my MBA, and I had the opportunity to do my MBA. Somebody called Paris Hilton, who is actually one of the children of the Hilton family, Hilton group of family. It's a huge hotel chain, and of course, the assets and revenues are in billions of dollars. One of the siblings, one of the children of the Hilton group of hotels, her name is Paris Hilton. She was actually shopping in $3. That's what I know. It was in the news and all, I think in People's Magazine in the US and all. So in $3, apparently in California, especially Los Angeles area, you can get grapes and any kind of things, from bathroom products to food products, groceries. So that's where, price is at $100, $1. That's it. There, it has been there since long time back, and this is a concept that can work there. Other potential government action receiving majority support, including pausing or holding rent and mortgage payments. So, mortgage payments. Obviously, if you lose a job, how are you going to make your payments? Obviously not. Your job is dependent. Your mortgage payment. A lot of us, especially in India, these days, I'm in the process of trying to acquire or buy a laptop. But unlike India, in Bhutan, we don't have something called EMI. I think monthly installments. You can buy a fridge or fridge and TVs and scooters and laptops, all on external hard disk drive, extra screen, everything on EMI. What that happens is that, and somebody was telling, a friend of mine was telling me is that you don't have to pay interest on all these EMIs. The only problem is if you miss your EMI, then you're blacklisted for the rest of your life, and no company is going to sell you. The best thing about why it is a win-win situation for the individual Indians as well as the company, because obviously you have a lot of storage. What do you call that? You have a lot of now. You have a lot of I forgot that particular word. You have a lot of products, and it's sitting on the shelf. It is better if these products fly off the shelves, because what happens is, in case of laptop, technology in 2007 used to change after every 16 or 18 months. Now it changes after, I have no idea, maybe a month or two. I'm just bracing myself for from 64-bit to 128-bit to come up, because when I had a laptop that was 32-bit, it was not good enough. I had to upgrade to 64-bit. Now I might have to upgrade to 128-bit. They might announce it tomorrow. What am I to do? I have to. Otherwise, my laptop is not going to work. It's not going to be compatible, or institutions are not if you're running a website or if you're running a data center, it's not going to be compatible. If you're running an airline, your systems have to be up to date. So that could be some of the things. Now, what happens is this EMI and all, the mortgage payment and all, that's when the central bank can do that. And fortunately, in Bhutan, we have the interest waiver right now until next year. But after that, I think we have an option of waiving the interest if you have loans or anything, or if your source of income is steady, then you can keep on paying. Unfortunately, what's happening is that sometimes in a joint family system, if one is earning, if three people are earning once, and one person lost a job, lost their job, obviously the other two siblings have to take care of the one sibling who has lost a job, and that's what's happening in Bhutan, and I'm sure in a lot of other countries. So this is from Forbes. So opportunities now. Now, if you look at this, we have Sonu Sood, we have Dollar Tree, we have the King of Bhutan, going all over the country, walking on foot, trying to reassure people that all you have to do is basic things. Unfortunately for Bhutan, we don't have 1 billion people, we just have 800,000 roughly, or less than that. Unlike in India, there are billion, there is a billion. So heroes like Sonu Sood steps in, does the best he can with the limited amount of funds he has compared to Ambani's and all. Of course, Bill Gates, I'm sure he's not as rich as Bill Gates or Ambani, and he's doing the best he can. And of course, opportunity means this nano space in the Czech Republic, they used to make linen. This nano space is a material that actually stops the bed mites from the mattresses coming in contact with your nose and you're breathing mites. So this is a company that actually what they did was they changed their policies and they have started producing masks because there was a strong request by the government and their importers or their government and the governments where they would export to buy masks instead of linen, because how many times do you change your bed sheet? And you don't change or you don't buy a bed sheet every day, you know. And another thing was Amazon or any online store, because why I put Amazon is because Jeff Bezos, his wealth went over $100 billion. And of course, he went to space, but that was in planning a long time back. So we cannot fault them for going to space. And it is a different kind of opportunity. And hopefully the COVID-19 is a temporary measure, temporary situation which we all can overcome together. So opportunities, India, Sonu Sood, once again, as I've explained, you know, some of us in Bhutan as well as India, we don't know about family planning. And in Bhutan, there are different kinds of Buddhisms here. So one Buddhism, they say that is old school, does not allow people to get does not allow, it's against the principle to practice family planning. So you have lots of kids. And if you lost your job and you have lots of kids, who do you feed? And yes, if there's somebody called Mr. Sonu Sood or Bhutanese Sonu Sood or American Sonu Sood, they could help you. But, you know, that's what happens. Czech Republic, this is what I meant. So they were producers bed linen, and now they were asked to produce, you know, masks. And that's what they did. There you go. You have a different kind of mask where you can see your teeth. And then there's mask making opportunities. Now we make tin plates. So somebody said, no, do you make masks? And then somebody said, no, we make tin plates, but our clients in America and Europe asked if we could source masks. So we do that now, she told me. We get them from a big factory nearby which makes masks. In those darkest moments, China stepped in and offered 20,000 masks as presents, the legislator said. A plane landed in Rome carrying masks and gear, but also traditional Chinese herbs and exercise in what was come to be known as mask diplomacy. So this talks about different things, but on the same paper. So what happened last year was, I think Italy, Rome was the worst affected. As the COVID infection was spiking so much that what they wanted was not what to say, spaghetti or, you know, that particular food, the basic Italian food. But what they needed was masks, and China stepped in with 200,000, and they exported. It's a good deed as well as a good business decision. Since then, Italy has bought more than 20 million masks from China, K95 masks since the weeks, for $2.50 a pop. So, of course, the usual surgical, as you already know, the usual surgical mask and K95 or N95, these are different masks. And some I've seen go as much as $4 or $10 even. So that's what happens. So this is from The Guardian. Face masks, coveted commodity, coronavirus pandemic. That was from this side. So you can go there and read all about it. Just wanted to show you some of the excerpts. So opportunities, hand sanitizer. Distillery owner making hand sanitizer for consumers. Distillery owners now making hand sanitizers for consumers. So last summer, John Poteet fulfilled a dream when he opened Shine Distillery and Grill, a 260-seat restaurant and micro distillery in Portland, Oregon. Historic 80% alcohol by volume. Shine hand sanitizer sells for $1 an ounce. An ounce could be just as much. It's $1. $1. And of course, I'm not surprised because they were selling in Bhutan, they were selling hand sanitizers, which is only 25 ml for 300 rupees. Obviously, now we know the reason why it costs so much, because of transportation and all the COVID protocols you have to follow. So source, CNBC. So it's an American site, news site. Bhutan's king. So what you can also do is, in times of need, when a leader goes around, that's Bhutan's king, that's our king, the 5th king of Bhutan. He has been here in this picture. You can see him and his brother, and this is the prime minister, and this could be a bodyguard or somebody or a villager.
Hello, sir, are you hearing me?